I hated driving to this theme park. Please don't drive there if you can help it.
So a lot of them get flown
I don't know if I'm still filming, but if I am, holy shit.
Located in the middle of butt F nowhere, aka Alton in Staffordshire, England, the Alton Towers Resort's USP is the fact that between your rides on roller coasters that aren't allowed to go above the tree line, you can also walk around nice, peaceful gardens, as well as a Grade 2 listed building known as the Alton Towers. Yeah, so the theme park we are discussing today has a deep history behind it. One more than probably any theme park I will ever cover. Legit, I will link the Wikipedia page below if you're curious of the history, since I bet most of you aren't here for the history of the park. But the before theme park times features a mention of the 1st century BC, the English Civil War, and instruments of torture. Seriously, it's an interesting read. Alton Towers has always interested me, and I was lucky enough to go when I was a child. But let's be real, you shouldn't trust everything you liked as a child. It interests me even more as an adult, as due to local council complaints over the years, rides cannot be above the tree line like I mentioned, and the theme park operators, Merlin Entertainment, have to watch their noise due to too many previous complaints. So it's a theme park with a fair few restrictions placed upon it, and I believe I speak for my fellow creative types here, but when your back's against the wall, you can produce some great work. This resort's been at the top of my to-do list, after I thought I should talk about theme parks online. But there's one issue, the aforementioned butt-fuck-nowhere-ness. Getting to Alton Towers is a bit of a nightmare. It's near Stoke-on-Trent in England, but the nearest major cities are Manchester and Birmingham. Both of those have airports, Birmingham being the easier of the two. But if you live elsewhere in the UK, it ain't that easy. For example, from where I used to live, it would take 5 hours one way to use public transport to get there. So you have to drive there. I only recently learnt how to drive at the time, as I personally hate driving. But when you have dogs as funny looking as mine, you do things you hate for the ones you love. The drive is nothing remarkable, until you start to get close to Alton. So, I pulled over when I got near to Alton Towers, and strapped a camera to my head. Don't worry, I was safe. And sadly, a lot of the footage is unusable, but please enjoy this mini highlight reel of a newly passed driver navigating some of the nastiest roads he had ever seen at the time.
Jesus.
So a lot of them get flown.
I don't know if I'm still filming, but if I am, holy shit.
To meet other patients, because to go to these conventions to get to it. And got videos from some kids that really got streaming.
Thank you, Connor. Okay, thank God we're patrons. Well, yeah, like that was such an interesting experience.
Get out. That's hard. Alright, that is a confusing road. Oh my god. This sucks. Hey, people in the future, I'm turning this down. Driving to Alton Towers really sucks. Stay on the motorway as long as you can, because fuck me, I fucked that up many times. There's a bus behind me who's probably thinking, what the hell is he doing? But you know what? I'm here, I'm alive, I had to do a parallel park style maneuver on the road. Oh my god. Where the fuck do I go? I don't know where I'm going. The drive here was horrific. Absolutely horrific. Right. Am I recording? I am. Ladies and gentlemen, driving to Alton Towers sucks.
So yeah, be warned, driving to Alton Towers is a bit of a headache. Making our way out of the car, my first impression was of the Splash Landings Hotel. We will touch on this in the latter portion of the review, but for now we make our way over to the monorail. The monorail is a pretty nice inclusion. It makes you feel like you've arrived somewhere otherworldly, and that you're about to go on an adventure. I mentioned in my Disneyland Paris review that I finally understand the appeal of trains, and by extension monorails at a theme park, as it allows you to get a view of the park from a different angle and take in the details with a new appreciation. Of course, this theme park isn't Disneyland level quality, sorry for the spoiler, but this monorail takes you to the front entrance. All the while, you're getting some nice views of the attractions you're about to do, or have done if you are leaving. A bit like Disneyland Paris and its train. It's a nice way to get hyped or think back on your day. Plus, the monorail will pass you by throughout your day in the park, giving a bit of kinetic energy that was appreciated. I walked to the park, and a perk of staying on site is an exclusive entrance to the park near a ride called Galactica. However, on day one I chose to enter through the main entrance to experience it for this review, and I totally didn't make a mistake and kept walking. The monorail may be a good option, to be honest, as the walk to the main entrance from the car park was a bit of a trek. You basically walk around the perimeter of the park, while the exclusive entrance lets you in as close as physically possible. I will say though, it is somewhat useless for the first hour of park opening. You'll see what I mean later. Speaking of entrances, the first impression as you walk to the main gate is nothing special, at least in regards to entering on foot. There is a little "Welcome to Alton Towers" sign, but to be fair, if you're walking to the entrance, this is more than likely not your first time. What is my basis for that argument? Fucking nothing. Anywho, we round a corner and get to the intended first impression. We see a roller coaster track, which from my research is a portion of the first ever roller coaster at Alton Towers, the Corkscrew, which is a nice bit of theme park history. Odd side tangent, but I feel theme parks are like one of the worst industries out there for preserving their history. It is tougher, to be fair, as most of the time these attractions are things that take up a lot of space. But you hardly hear of a theme park ride being removed and then nothing remains, you know? TL don't care. Yeah, that's cool. The entrance is nothing special past that nice reveal of the coaster track, so let's get touched down at the security checkpoint, they were rather nice actually, and enter the park. The first impression is quite nice, to be fair. I noticed some Nemesis theming, which is a roller coaster in the park by the way, but besides that, you get a nice open view ahead of you, despite how little space there actually is. It's weird and hard to explain, along with simple but visually pleasing buildings. I could faintly hear music, but I couldn't tell you what it was. Though the next day I did hear more, and it's actually quite nice. It's got that typical theme park orchestral vibe of, you're going on an adventure. And I kind of like that. It's a quaint first impression, one that doesn't exactly get me excited for the day, but for sure curious for what lies ahead. What lay ahead was another nice open space with a stage, the acclaimed Alton Towers, a big lake in the distance, and CBeebies Land. Very quickly for my non-UK friends, CBeebies is a part of the BBC umbrella, with this channel aimed at younger kids, like 6 and under, so preschool/early school stuff. This land is actually pretty heavily packed according to the map, with brands and shows that appeal to the target demographic, such as In the Night Garden, Postman Pat and the Octonauts. Now, I hope you respect the fact that I only have footage of the outside of the land, and that's it. I did film parts of a children's area at the other end of the park, but there I took great care to avoid filming kids. I would have a nightmare doing that here. Plus, I feel I would not be welcome in there while walking around holding a camera, so for the sake of my criminal record, I hope today you can forgive me for not filming a kids' land. If you did wish I walk in there and film kids, the power of Christ compels you, my man. Walking ahead, past a roller coaster called Spinball Whizzer, which we will ignore for now, I want to touch on the X sector, and the ride that probably got Alton Towers the most press they ever got back in 2015, the Smiler. But before that, very quickly, I have to mention something. I noticed very few water refill spots around the park, and one of the only ones I could remember is along this path. According to my findings online, there are 6. I personally feel that this isn't enough, especially with how slow they fill your water bottle. But take my advice now. If you see one, flipping use it. I was thirsty throughout most of the day, and it pissed me off. And don't even begin to ask me about the colour of said piss. Anyways, walking past the towers, which we'll touch on in a bit, we enter X Sector, a sterile looking land with 2 attractions, Oblivion as the aforementioned Smiler. I was so excited to finally experience the Smiler upon hearing about it for years. And of course, the infamous incident. If you did not know, in 2015 the Smiler had an issue which resulted in the collision of multiple ride cars, with 16 people getting hurt. Of those 16, 5 were seriously injured, and of those 5, 2 people required partial leg amputations. That is horrific for them, no doubt about it, and it does show that roller coasters, despite their safety precautions, are big hulking slabs of metal who don't give a fuck about you or your well-being. But I also wanted to mention that on the day I'm writing this section, May 26th, 2024, 2 of the people in said incident, one of which had to lose part of her leg, got married today. How cool, big congrats to them. I hope Alton Towers gave you something nice. Or maybe you don't want to hear from them ever again, both are understandable. The Smiler tries to big itself up by showing off the facts as you walk towards the ride, which on closer inspection also gives names to each part of the ride, and the purpose of said ride. What you will learn with Alton Towers' owners, Merlin Entertainment, they love to open up rides with some kind of world record or world's first. For example, this is the world record holder for the number of loops on a ride at 14. That sounds mental and awesome, and that got me hyped already. What also got me hyped is the music in this part of the land. It's actually kind of a fire beat, mixed in with rhythmical laughing. I can't lie, I really like the theme, man. The music paired with the visuals of the ride from the outside, it sets a foreboding and intriguing tone. Like the roller coaster looks so unique and weird from the outside, with its ride track and distinct yellow features. Enough of the jabber. Let's go. Walking through the queue, it has next to no theming. But in this case, I am fine with that, because you're walking under the actual roller coaster itself, getting to have a closer look at some of the screens, and of course the ride track. What a great way to get around not having any theming. Just have the person sit and watch what they are about to go on while standing underneath. If it's a long day though, it will get boring fast, as there's only so long you can look at something before just wishing you were on it, you know? It's also a cattle pen queue, so you'll be going back and forth on yourself. These suck. Merlin Entertainment, please stop using them. The music changes a bit more in the queue, I noticed. It goes from a more attractive and funner track to a more ominous, unattractive sound. It's like free music. The ride's designers are trying to say, this place is a bit fucked up, mate. You sure you want to do this? And I respond to this supposed designer with, yes, I just drove to the middle of buttfuck nowhere and paid good money, so let me on so I can smile, dagnammit. The indoor queue is the same no matter what queue you enter, be that single rider, fast track, or the normal queue. Speaking of single rider very quickly, the Smiler is the only ride that has a single rider line, meaning if you don't mind not being with your party, or of course being a single rider, you should get on the ride faster than the standard queue. I found this to be true versus the normal queue on this ride, but your mileage varies depending on the ride. Back to the indoor queue. It's fine. There's some projection mapping dotted around the room, and some flashing lights. Whatever. The main event is upon us. Let's go. After possibly handing over your bags, more on that later, and passing through a sterile loading area, the Smiler begins hot, turning left and dipping into a corkscrew in the pitch black, quickly showing the rider that they're going to be going upside down in this ride a fair bit, before then coming back outside. We climb a 45-degree hill, then go through 5 inversions in total, which means we went upside down 5 times. There's also a point where, only on the ride itself or at the right angle, where the ride's track looks like a smiley face. This bit almost feels like a warm-up, I feel, as after this you reach a 90-degree climb. There are screens above you. I rode this ride various times, by the way, and unlike Fort Park, these worked each time, which was nice. And the musical laughing returns, but with sounds of a heartbeat. Every time bar one on the screens, I just got a heartbeat monitor, but one time I got footage of like some scientists and other footage of shit looking a bit messed up. I wish I could tell you more, but every damn POV that Alton Towers has allowed to be shot on this ride that I could find online doesn't have the damn screens in the frame. I think it was Join Us, but I can't be 100% sure. So let's just say it says, you're boned, mate. 90-degree climbs are freaky, man. I mentioned that in my Universal Orlando review when I rode Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, and I shall mention it again. You're pinned back into your chair, as gravity's a bitch. And sure, you can look around a little bit, but you pretty much have no choice but to look up. What happens next is 9 inversions in quick succession, dipping in and around the center point of the ride. I will say, on the ride you don't really notice much of that theming in the center due to how fast you whiz by. The ride ends as it began, with a corkscrew, but this time in the light of British rain, and this time this too. Process complete can be read to your side as the riders disembark. The Smiler's constant twists and turns are incredible. The first half was smooth, while the second half was rough, which in a way you could argue was good ride storytelling, as it seems the ride's purpose at the start was to make you smile, but the second half was to make you scream. The ride has a great kinetic energy to it when there's two vehicles on the track. You'll get points where both are either ascending a hill or going through the track. And it can be fun just to sit and watch the Smiler after your ride, contemplating if the queue is short enough to ride again, as trust me, once you ride the Smiler once, you will want to go back on it. It is that damn good. One thing I learned from the Smiler, now that I have reviewed the ride, is that from now on, I'm going to pack earplugs for any theme park excursion. I was sitting next to a little girl who was so loud I spent the final ride of the day trying to battle hearing loss instead of the Smiler. So maybe a lesson for any of you out there who have hearing issues like me. Anyways, after having my right ear changed for life as well as my favourite roller coaster list, I felt it was appropriate to check out the other attraction in X Sector, Oblivion. Before walking into the queue, you can sit around a sign reading "Don't Look Down" on the floor. The text is inside of the logo of the ride, that of which is pointed at the drop we're about to ride, an 87.5 degree drop. So not truly vertical like Alton Towers claims it to be, but then again it's close enough, and I don't have time to waste talking about pointless theme park things. Entering the line, walking through we pass under some old ass looking monitors, which have a dude baked in shadows talking gubbins about the ride. I had no idea what he was saying apart from a 20-second clip that plays before you leave the loading station. So I did my research, and these videos are the second most 90s thing in this ride. I also learnt that Fanta sponsored this ride in April of 2011, for a brief period, but after a buttload of complaints, it was removed. In fairness to the general public, this shit did look nasty. The colours surrounding the Don't Look Down section and the surrounding ride area changed from an orange, which mixed in well with the sterile looking area. Instead now, it's a rather obnoxious yellow. Not only that, but the vibe of the ride changed from "this shit is scary, face your fears, this ride's gonna take you on the ride of your life," to "take on Oblivion with Fanta. More Fanta, less serious. Grab some fear-fighting Fanta." And I'm not truly sure what this last one says around the drop fully, but it does have the words "tummy bubbles" in it. I will repeat, Oblivion, tummy bubbles. After that lore dump and history lesson, we walk a bit further in, and I have two thoughts of this screenshot before you. 1. This looks like something you could possibly see at a school disco. 2. I bet those screens play Smash Bros. Melee really well. A bit further in the line, you get a cool view of the Smiler from the queue. That's, nice. Besides that, the queue is quite uneventful as you spiral around towards the ride. However, you do keep passing the ride from various angles, which does help build hype. Quick note, someone was using a camera on this ride without proper authorization, dropped it, and that halted operations for 20 minutes. Fuck that person, moving on. Watching the pre-show videos online, as I only watched the final bit while waiting in the loading area, the pre-show videos mainly go through what the feeling of freefalling does to the human body, as well as the psychological effects, mixed with quick cuts and PlayStation 1 ass drum and bass playing in the background. Legit, if I played footage of Wipeout on the PS1 with this music, you'd probably have been none the wiser, or not have a single clue what the hell I was showing. For shame. However, one of the clips basically calls your friend a pussy if they don't ride the ride, which is very much fitting with the in-your-face nature of the ride videos. And I kinda love it. I can imagine someone standing in the line with their mate who just said they were nervous for the ride, and when that clip ended, they'd all go, "Hooray!" at them. Peer pressure's amazing, am I right?
But it may be enough for some people to experience what is known as a cop-out. If this happens to your friends, it means that they have 0 G tolerance. Or that they're just soft.
I want to dissect this video a bit more, as the second clip talks about the aforementioned psychological effects of riding the ride. Of course, drummed up a bit for effect. But not only does it insult people who are scared again, but it had editing that made me laugh out loud when watching it. Finally, there's actually 2 versions of the final video before you get to the ride dispatch, which I found interesting. The one that used to be there, according to this video I found, has the previous host having a back and forth with a light and dark version of himself. And it's pretty comical until the end, where I actually feel it's kind of sinister. Instead, now it's just an instrumental video with text flashing on screen. The change is really odd for 2 reasons. The first being that the tone that was set before with the other 2 clips is kind of ruined in my opinion. And the second is that the replacement clip is just really naff. Like, this is what made me keep yapping on about the PlayStation 1. This shit looks like something that I would see on the PlayStation 1. At the rather basic loading area, after you drop your bags off to the side, one final clip plays, which basically says, "No way out, blah blah blah." But I found it kind of cheesy, and the head scaling down into an explosion was just really funny. Instead, I think it would have been actually cool and creepier to keep this sinister theme up, and instead have the video that was taken away play while you're loading onto the ride. Imagine you're getting strapped in, you're hearing this back and forth about how the ride is and isn't safe. The ride starts moving away and you hear this. "Have a pleasant trip. See you around. Bye."
Have a pleasant trip. See you around. Bye.
Like, come on man, missed opportunity and it was looking right at you. Start your stopwatch, as this is going to be a short one. After a small hill climb, don't forget about the tree line height limit, you slowly approach the drop. You hold there for a second, looking down towards the ground. Proper freaky if you're in the front row. And then the feeling of weightlessness begins, as you dive into the ground. It is a wicked visual off the ride, and rather thrilling on the ride. You bank a left turn before rather harshly hitting the brakes multiple times. 32 minutes of build up, 32 seconds of fun. There's many jokes to be made. I won't make any of them because I'm not funny. But Oblivion is the ultimate one-trick pony. It does one thing, and it does that one thing rather well, with a unique twist being that you go underground. I had fun, and for sure say give it a go at this park, but I will say ride it with a short wait, if possible, to keep the expectations measured, and maybe ride it only once, possibly twice total, as the seat and ride restraints were not very forgiving. And by my 3rd and 4th go, I had a horrific headache. So at this point, I had a headache and an earache. Am I sure I like theme parks? Leaving through an arcade, where a Pepperami plushie was giving me some weird love-making eyes, and leaving X Sector, home of a fried chicken diner that gave me a minor heart attack at their prices, let's backtrack a little bit, and check out Spinball Whizzer, the ride we passed earlier. Before we ride the ride, because there isn't much to talk about, this ride for a period of time was called Sonic Spinball, and was part of a unique partnership between Sega and Alton Towers. The ride didn't get anything special with this Sonic edition, apart from a Sonic statue out front, some Sonic music, and Sonic being the announcer, which I never thought I wanted to hear Sonic the Hedgehog tell me safety information about a roller coaster, but I am here for it. It's kind of cute too. Whenever something bad happens, like the ride closes, they blame it on Dr. Eggman, the main villain from the Sonic franchise.
Uh-oh, it seems Dr. Eggman has been up to no good again. And for now, all spinning is being held off. We're not sure how long it's going to take before we start spinning again, but we're working as quickly as we can to do so. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
There were also Sonic-themed hotel rooms, with some pretty great theming around the room, such as Chaos Emerald lamps, plushies around the place, themed murals, and also provided game consoles for the kids or lonely adults who want to bash out around a Sonic 06. I jest, but that's really cool. Plus, from a tour I saw of the room online, there was a laptop bag with all of the current generation consoles and modern Sonic releases at the time. Plus, Sonic the Hedgehog talks to you when you open the door. How equally creepy and cool at the same time.
Hey, welcome to the Sonic Room. This is where all the cool hedgehogs hang out. Let's go!
I'd stay there, no question. And I don't even care that much for Sonic, I still would. Eventually, after 6 years starting in 2010, Spinball Whizzer returned, after its initial opening in 2004, and well, what do we have here? A very bland queue I will entirely skip, and a ride that can best be described as a spinning coaster, which looks rough as hell off the ride, but actually on, it's pretty great, as long as you try and look where you're going. I have ridden a ride like this before at Walt Disney Studios Park, of course with more theming, and that ride is indeed better, although there is some basic theming, with the point of this ride being that you are a ball in a game of pinball. So with a ride time of 75 seconds, you last about 55 seconds longer than I ever have at pinball. I swear, I love pinball, but I bloody suck at it. Spinball Whizzer is a great time, though you may be waiting longer than you probably should due to the limited trains that go out at once. It looks like there's 2 at once out there, while 1 is climbing, which is true, and it does provide some nice kinetic energy, a bit like the Smiler did. However, the max people you're getting on a car is 4, and due to what looks like weight limitations with the spinning, it seemed 3 or 2 people was the most common I saw when cars were being sent out. Not to take away from the ride, it's a good laugh, worth a punt, but wouldn't say queue up again. Instead, run back to the Smiler, I'd say. One thing I love at this park, which appears here, is the leitmotif of the Alton Towers theme in each of the ride's theme songs, by having the basis of the theme park's iconic song work in the context of the ride. The original song is called Hall of the Mountain King, by the way. For example, at the Smiler, Hall of the Mountain King is made up by using laughs. And here, Hall of the Mountain King is covered in a chiptune 16-bit video game style. From my research, the Alton Tower music is done by a German recording studio called Imascore, and overall, I think they really smashed it with the music throughout Alton Towers. The chiptune version of the main theme was nifty, like I said. I was about to say pinball isn't a video game, but how exactly do you score a song based on pinball? Exactly! This is a YouTube video, so you can't respond. Leaving the nightmare of being a pinball, we pass X Sector and walk past what I believe to be the Alton Towers. I was unsure at first as I saw signs around the park saying how much Alton Towers had invested in this Grade 2 property to restore it, but from the angles I saw it, it looked like it was in disrepair and untouched, which, if that is true, is pretty cool. Walking around the towers here was really beautiful, as you get the view of the front of the towers, lovely string-based orchestral music playing through hidden speakers in the bushes, and if you look to your left, you get a view of a lake as the entry to the park. Seeing the view of the towers from the opposite side of the lake looks cool. It reminds me of Resident Evil 8 when you first see the castle from very far away for the first time. Sadly, without the sexuality questioning vampires. I did walk around all of the towers I could, which was none. I understand not letting people enter because it was probably vandalized in the past, because we can't have nice things, but if I have to guess, knowing how theme parks make money, you can only enter the towers on a paid tour. Let me know if I'm right or wrong.
It's cool though, I guess. The actual, classic architecture is cool. Although I do live in the middle of butt-F nowhere, so architecture like this is actually kind of common for me, I won't lie.
Passing the front of the towers, you're faced with many possible options of where to go, but we are heading north for now, as this part of the park's all on its lonesome, and we'll be backtracking anyways. You pass under an archway, where you can turn right to enter some gardens outside the towers or keep walking. Past said entrance, you come upon a ride named Hex. From my research, it looks like you go into the actual towers for a portion of the queue, though I could be talking out my ass, and it's actually a facade. Oh my god, Nessie. And the ride system itself is personally something I have never been on outside of unthemed versions, that being a spinning ride where you rotate around the room and the room changes around you as you rotate. Shit looks really, really cool, and I am gutted I was unable to try it for this review. Swallowing my sadness, that emotion became disappointment as we entered the world of David Walliams. If it weren't for the titular Gangsta Granny the Ride in this land, I would not be able to tell you what the theme of this land was from walking around it. It looked rough as hell, and has 100% seen better days. The driving school had cars that did not work, buildings looked like they are crying for attention, there's obvious spaces where flat rides used to be. It was really strange. It probably doesn't help that the land is the most tucked away, having to be entered through what just looked like to be part of the towers. And to the best of my knowledge, that's the only way in. So I would be very shocked if the David Walliams ride was ever anything more than a 10-minute wait, even on a busy day. Random aside, considering how close this land is to X Sector, The Smiler and Oblivion, it was shocking how little I heard it. Alton Towers really did nail how to balance the sound around the park. Highly commendable. Gangsta Granny the Ride, based on the book series I know nothing about, is a dark ride in which we watch Granny herself, and I'm assuming her grandson, pull off a heist. The outdoor area is fine enough, and the queue is actually pretty damn small. I was shocked how quickly I got to the front of the queue, but it seems like this ride could take in quite a few people per hour, as I believe there was room for like 10 people in each ride vehicle. Gangsta Granny the Ride is a dark ride that mixes in practical sets, projections, screens, and some practical effects, like smoke for good measure. I won't spoil the whole story on this occasion, but I am shocked to say that this dark ride is worth your time. It's no Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man over at Islands of Adventure, but then again, that is one of the best dark rides probably in the world, which I will cover someday. But for now, I must say, I exited this ride shocked to say it is worth your time. Minus sometimes when a projector would turn off or on a second too early or late, the operations of the ride were great, and I enjoyed how well the screens and practical hello. A good example would be a scene where there's a crown on a display, a character with projections on a shell of a body, and screens to the side. It makes for visually quite a dynamic scene, despite the fact not much is actually going on. Plus, having the crown disappear after only a couple seconds in the dark is pretty sick. Another example of this is when there is a physical podium in front of you, but the animated characters interact with it and move the plot along using that prop. It's just a detail I enjoy, I guess. I will say the ending kind of happens and then you're done. It was a bit jarring, and I feel like it needed like a couple of lines over the inbuilt speakers just to say, "We did our mission, hooray!" But maybe I was just being stupid that day. Highly possible. The animation style of the animated scenes did feel like a book illustration come to life, and I can't believe I would ever say this, especially considering how terrible the land actually is, but I really recommend Gangsta Granny the Ride. With so much to look at as you move around from room to room, both adults and kids may get a kick out of this. I doubt you'll ever ride this more than once, and you may look weird being the only adult on the ride surrounded by kids, but if it means anything, I'm pretty sure I was the youngest person in my ride vehicle that day. Maybe there's a secret fandom to this property I am none the wiser to.
Wait! My crown! My crown! Was that you lot? Guards, bring out big feathers!
Leaving the world of David Walliams before I contract something, we walked past an attraction that was closed, and looked like it would be closed for a while. An upcharge called the Alton Towers Dungeon, aka something you have to pay for on top of your normal ticket. Just an editor's note, I guess. It's closing down, so... cool. The Skyride looked like a gondola system that would take you around the park. A shame, as looking down on the rides and the gardens would have been quite nice. I always like various perspectives when it comes to pretty and cool looking things, and the Alton Towers Dungeon, I believe, is, or was, a slow moving boat ride. I think it is, or was, as it replaced a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory ride I remember going on the one time I came here about 12 years ago. The dungeons always looked a bit tacky to me. There's one near me at the time of writing in Edinburgh, and the point of these things is to retell the history of the place you are in, but make it creepy and scary. But it just looked a bit corny to me, and I have stated before that these kind of things just don't interest me. Not even Halloween Horror Nights at Universal interests me that much. Moving on, we make our way towards the Dark Forest, home to the roller coasters 13 and Rita. The mood is set perfectly, with haunting music as you walk towards and enter the land, coupled with the fact that the first two things you see as you enter is tormented treats, selling overpriced theme park food, and demon pots, which allows you to attempt to beat a rigged carnival game for a Pokemon plushie. I don't know about you, but I am terrified. Minus a water refill spot, drink your water, that's really all there is in this area besides the rides. So let's begin. Rita screams to me that this is a ride from a former land that got a basic retheme to fit with a spooky vibe. You can tell from the ride vehicle trying to look like a fast car, the entrance being half of a tyre, but now with overgrowth on it, same with the control tower where the staff send the ride off. It ain't a bad retheme, I'm not trying to say that. If anything, I'm grateful for the attempt to try and bring the new and old together in a synergistic way. It's just very, very, very obvious. The queue has nothing to note, though you do get some nice views of the ride taking off. Here it is in slow motion. Fun. I'm not sure what the story of this ride is supposed to be. You get some voiceover, if I remember rightly, as you wait. And the point of the ride is I think you're trying to run away from something scary. I think the bigger bad from the other ride in this land, 13. The point of this ride, and one I previously reviewed called Stealth, is to go fast. That's the main thrill here. The best part of it is the anticipation. You sit there slowly moving back, and there's a traffic light above you that you won't see for too long, as by the time it's gone green, the ride has already reached just under 100 kilometers an hour in 2.5 seconds. That's fun, man. Nothing can tell me otherwise. However, from there, the ride's layout is nothing special. Sadly, Alton Towers has a height restriction, which I mentioned before, so there's nothing really fancy you can do with the speed. With rides I have been on, such as Red Force at Ferrari Land in Spain, or Stealth at Waterpark in England, you can use that speed to climb high and get a nice view of Tarragona and an average view of some trees respectively. And yes, it is over fast, but you get that nice view out of it. What I'm trying to say is that though Rita is fast and can be fun, I rode it twice, and after that I was done, and I feel no desire to ride it again due to how boring the ride layout is. Sure, you could argue that the ride layout is way more fun than the previous roller coasters I mentioned, but I think in this case I have to disagree. It wasn't too rough, all things considered, I will say, but then again, I'm someone who holds on and tries to reduce the amount of head trauma you can get on a roller coaster sometimes, so keep that in mind.
Keep your head back. Hold on tight. You must escape. Go!
From a ride I don't have much to say to one I believe I will have more to say on. 13 really interested me upon my arrival to Fort Park. No, what else? From a ride I don't have much to say to one I believe I will have more to say on. 13 really interested me upon my arrival to Alton Towers, as I remember as a kid seeing some pretty cool looking adverts with this girl singing "If You Come Down to the Woods Today," while the forest around her looks like it's trying to capture her and take her in. Not only that, but it also shows off at the end of one of the adverts that there is a drop on this ride, a bit like my favourite ride in the world, Tower of Terra at Walt Disney World. So needless to say, I was ready to drop it like it's hot and get my arse down to the woods today. Oh, and apparently there was a pre and post watershed advert, which is really cool actually, meaning that there was a version pre 9 PM which a child in theory could see, and one that was designed for an older audience only. The ride itself doesn't have an age limit ironically, but it does have a minimum and maximum height of 120cm to 196cm. Entering the queue for a pretty small entryway, I just noticed in writing this section that there are two figures next to the ride signs, and one is missing their head. The queue is actually not too bad. Sure, it's unthemed to heck in a traditional theme park sense, but the trees everywhere really does make me feel like I am embarking on an adventure I probably shouldn't be on right now. Plus, natural theming is a rarity in theme parks. so I approve. Even if it was man-made, if you catch my drift. 2 pitfalls here though. You can see Rita from the queue line, but to be honest, that's not that big of an issue. You get some different angles that you wouldn't get otherwise. The other pitfall is that there's a vending machine in the line, which not only ruins the immersion, but is highway robbery, with a packet of chocolate buttons being £4. Now that is probably the scariest thing I will see all day. So, open question that I'm not expecting an answer to, but would like one someday. Are you allowed to reject the baggage drop-off points at Alton Towers? At least at attractions that are roller coasters? I ask, as one day the baggage point was open, the next day closed, and the ride operated at about the same level of smoothness on both days. I don't know. Of course, one is safer than the other, just something I pondered as I noticed the baggage area was left abandoned for the day. Or maybe it was to add some ambience to the ride. Ooh, spooky! No, I don't think it was. The interior parts of this queue was rather great. There's some chalk writing on the stone-looking walls of the lyrics, "If you go down to the woods today, you better not go alone." And you will hear the girl from the 13 adverts saying these words. And with the rather dim lighting in the queue, it sets up a pretty creepy mood going into the ride. There were smells too. I can't quite put my finger or nose on what exactly it was, but it did make me feel like I was once again entering a forest. So whatever the hell it was, it did the job it was supposed to. In the centre of the room is a Tesla coil that will give a first-time rider a jump scare, as when the girl counts from 1 to 13, the Tesla coil will go off with quite a loud buzz sound, as well as the disembodied voice screaming. To mix it up and keep people guessing, I would have rather the Tesla coil went off at any of the numbers between 1 and 13, but at the same time, I bet that would have made it more annoying to program, so After being told the safety information from a rather corny sounding voiceover, we are off. The ride isn't very fast and not too thrilling. This is deemed a family coaster, but there are some unique aspects to it that make the ride more enjoyable. Firstly is the scenery. I can't name you a roller coaster that allows you to dip and curve in a quiet forest. I didn't think about how unique that was at the time, but in retrospect, it's kinda nifty. Next, there's a drop. Alton Towers is owned by Merlin Entertainment, and what I have come to notice with them is they love to produce firsts. So for example, at the time of writing, their newest ride is Hyperia at Fort Park, and that is the UK's tallest roller coaster, and 13 was sold as the world's first vertical freefall drop coaster. What does this mean? So, the ride's vehicle drives into a crypt, some spooky sounds play as the ride stays still, and then drop. Yeah, it's exactly what it says it is. The track itself drops down a level, which is really fun when you don't expect it. You will expect it now, so sorry. After that, the ride will then go backwards in the dark, which isn't super thrilling once again, but automatically made more thrilling than the first part because it's in the dark and you can't see where you're going. I assume in story the ride dropping and going backwards was us escaping that creepy bitch in the adverts and the queue. But I am unsure, since these roller coasters I have ridden so far aren't really trying to tell a story, I think. 13 is an average coaster held up by its theming and unique selling point. I rode it 3 times to try and fully understand my feelings on the ride. Sadly, no single rider, and unlike Rita, this had a horrifically long queue to walk through. Yet this is still somehow not the longest queue to walk through in the park, more on that later. But overall, I'm still undecided on 13. I think it's perfect for older kids, and it could be a great way to work up to the bigger rides. But even then, the drop and the backwards portion is still fun, even if the backwards part does feel rather hollow, as you're going backwards in the dark and there's no music playing or sounds in general to make it feel either exciting or feel like you're running away from something scary. There is one thing I can 100% say, and that this ride is not called 13. It's Ter 113, and I will hear no other name from now on, thank you. Heading back towards the centre of the park to check out the rest of the rides, we find ourselves in the gardens. The gardens are beautiful to walk through, and this is one of Alton Towers' best selling points, as you are walking past actual British history, and the natural beauty really is enough for you to stop and take a picture. Walking between rides through the gardens like I did to get to the other side of the park can be a relaxing experience, and make you feel like you've left the atmosphere of a theme park briefly and instead are walking around a nature park on the weekend. There will be times where it's just you or maybe a couple other people in the immediate area, and it's something I haven't felt before in a theme park, and one I am unsure I'm gonna feel again. It was a genuine joy taking my time to walk this way. It gave me a moment to calm down, forgetting about hitting every attraction before the park closes like my normal park days, and just enjoying the peace and tranquility. For real, I have already said it, but the noise dampening done between the areas is something to be commended. You would not be able to tell 15 minutes ago I was going fast as fuck boy on a roller coaster. TLDR, shit's pretty. Quick mention to the ride Battle Galleons and Mutiny Bay. This is the pirate-themed section that housed a water ride, where you follow a fixed path around a pirate ship. I've seen this kind of ride system before, and it can be fun on a busy day, but on an average or quiet day, where people are only heading for the big hitters and not the filler rides, these kind of rides look sort of sad to watch, as there's normally only one family driving across the water, shooting at nothing. A way to make these rides better, in my opinion, would be to add targets and earn a score as you go, but that would probably cost too much. As for the Mutiny Bay section itself, I saw some walk-around actors dressed as your cliché pirates, which was a nice touch for the kids. Probably should reword that sentence. But sadly, the Mutiny Bay area was mostly covered up with carnival games, which, if you've been here before, you know I think they are a waste of space at a theme park. But there was a gift shop, and places to get food, as well as sit down and relax if need be. I would argue the main attraction in this area is the Sea Life Shark Bait Reef Aquarium. Normally these kind of things are an upcharge at a theme park, but this is part of your ticket, which is pretty sick. I didn't go in there due to time reasons, plus I find zoos a weird line to walk mentally. My missus is a trained zoologist, and even she has the same kind of, I don't know how to feel about this feeling. However, to end on a positive for this section, next to the Battle Galleons ride, there is a skeleton on top of a post, and below him was a shark rotating around him. Theming! I approve. So nice, it smells of cheap theme park food. I haven't eaten all day. Nestled just on the outskirts of the pirate land sits a ride that has no place being there theming wise, but my god, I'm glad it does. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to my favourite ride in the park, the Wicker Man. You can tell it's my favourite. I bought a mug which will definitely turn some heads at this week's book club. To start with, look at this shit. I love when there's a main theme or icon of a roller coaster that you go in and out of as you go. And this one may be my new favourite. I did not fully click on this until reviewing my footage months later, but this hulking wooden mofo has two heads to him. One that looks somewhat human outside of the ride, but right before you enter the indoor portion of the queue, you get a wicked side view of the ride, and the head of what I'm assuming is the Wicker Man has changed to one of a horned son of a gun. Also, this ride's mainly made out of wood, if you couldn't tell. As you walk towards the queue, there's fog used to replicate the effect of smoke, as the fire seen on a lot of the Wicker Man is actually screens, which does suck, but is understandable. That does not mean there isn't actual fire, but it is just not as much as I was hoping for. But don't get it twisted, this mofo looks so cool. Entering the queue, although it is a maze and a have to walk through, the soundtrack you hear is so damn cool. Hearing it makes me think of gladiators getting ready to battle or some shit. It was creepy, but equally kind of hype at the same time. Also, the Alton Towers theme is here once again, on this occasion in the form of a female singer vocalizing the tune. Give it a listen. Fire track. Throughout the queue were also strange symbols relating to the Wicker Man. It wasn't elaborate, but the theming I found was actually good in this queue, as it just made me more curious of the relation between these symbols and the ride before us. Also, I managed to capture people mocking me for filming. Well, all I can say to that is, hi guys, it's Antonio here, telling you to go screw yourself and I hope your car broke down on the way home. I was stuck behind them for an hour, by the way, more on why later in the video. After winding around the queue, getting peeks at the ride through the wooden fences, we finally get a wide view of the ride in action, including the full reveal that the face we saw at the start of the queue has changed. The ride looks alright in terms of speed, but let me tell you, looks can be deceiving. All the crowd is instructed to pass over their bags and receive a band to get it back later. So it turns out the Wicker Man leads a cult or group, don't want to be out here cult shaming, living out in the woods that we just walked into. They were told the Wicker Man one day would rise again, but they need a gift. Take a guess what the gift is gonna be. The animation projected on a piece of cloth felt like all the animations were puppets, and I liked it. But the cloth pulls away in the dark as the Wicker Man himself appears before us in the form of projection mapping on top of a wooden carving. The face we saw outside the queue burning away to show the horned version we saw outside. Honestly, pretty great pre-show. People who have ridden the ride before were standing below the Wicker Man's head and rushed to get onto the ride ASAP, while everyone else shuffles forward to get on the ride in the next room. Once on the ride, we climb a pretty long hill, the ride chain below clinking loudly, warning you that you may have a ringing ear when the ride is over. The ride enters a smoky tunnel, dipping down and back up into another to gain some speed. And by God, it is on now. The ride twists briefly before banking left hard as you pass underneath the Wicker Man. You then curve to the right as you dip down, and this time the ride goes through what would be the Wicker Man's chest. When I rode it, fire was coming out as we approached above us. That was nifty. From there, the ride is pretty much over as you turn back towards the loading area. Before you do, you sit in a near pitch black area with the sound of crackling around you. I think the point of this area is to show that although you survived this time, you may not be as lucky on your next visit. The gift shop was your typical fare, although the bust of the Wicker Man you walk around is pretty rad. The Wicker Man may be a family coaster, but my God, it doesn't feel like one. Kids will be screaming their asses off on this ride. The layout may not look fancy and kinda slow, but on the ride, my God, the feeling of speed is unmatched. You may not actually be going that fast, but my God, does it feel like you are. Like, I ain't fucking about when I say the sense of speed mixed with the sensation of the sounds of the wooden track around you is bloody unmatched. I thought this ride was incredible. Dipping in and around the Wicker Man itself was awesome, and overall, this is my favourite ride in the park. I may not have ridden it more than a certain attraction we'll touch on shortly, due to the queue always being rather long for this ride, but my God, if you could pick only one ride to jump on at this park for some reason, in my opinion, it should be the Wicker Man. I had a hoot and a holler of a time on this ride. Highly recommend it. Walking from Mutiny Bay, we now find ourselves in Katanga Canyon, home to a mine train, roller coaster and a rapids attraction. We pass a nice mini waterfall into a very small land. All I remember is the two attractions, some carnival games, and that's about it. Sadly, the rapids ride was closed, so to not totally waste your time, let's hop on the runaway mine train. The queue had nothing of note, although I saw some articles of theming that I swear I also saw at Big Thunder Mountain at Disneyland Paris, so I guess there's like a basic template of mining equipment you should have in a theme park ride. Fair enough. Sitting down on the ride, the lad at the control tower did like a spiel, which he has to do every time, so I'm guessing there is some Alton Towers lore that I don't know. As there were locals around me also saying it with him, ending with a cute choo-choo. The ride itself doesn't have much of note, it's very much a child's coaster with a bit of speed, but it was an enjoyable ride. However, there was one nice surprise, which was after banking around a turn, in the dark, the left side of you opens up, briefly, before going outside, and you're able to view riders on the rapids ride next to you, which creates a nice bit of synergy between the two rides, which was a genuine joy to see the first time. It's perfectly fine, skippable if you have a packed day and you can only hit a certain amount of attractions. But just from my one ride, I can tell that this ride has some diehards, who would be very sad if the ride disappeared in the future. Oddly enough, I felt more unsafe in this ride than some of the bigger rides at the park. So my best advice to you is to sit in the middle of a ride vehicle and spread your legs out to distribute your weight so you feel balanced, as I was shaking like a mofo in my ride vehicle.
Now sit back, hold on tight, and enjoy the ride. Choo-choo.
In quite a drastic turn of vibes, we make our way to a very small pocket of the park, which, by the way, if you ignore this attraction and keep walking straight out of this land, you find yourself at a lovely little lake with some old architecture knocking about, including what I believe to be a natural cave. But anyways, we find our next attraction nestled away on its lonesome in the land known as Gloomy Wood. There are scare actors around this creepy looking exterior. Welcome to the curse at Alton Manor. There's also an ice cream stand outside the road too, which for some reason always had a massive line. Shit must have been good. Continuing the weird theme of trying to spook you after Towa 13, Nemesis Subterra, which we'll discuss shortly, the Alton Towers dungeon, and apparently Hex is pretty spoopy too. This is a dark ride where you are wandering through Alton Manor, whose only resident it seems is a little girl called Emily, who after being left in the attic and getting friendly with some dark forces, is a bit angry, and for some reason she's taking it out on us. Sadly, there is no POVs of this ride that are actually good quality, probably because Alton Towers doesn't want any filmed yet, and my memories of this ride are spotty. But I found this dark ride to have a good mix of practical sets, projections, sounds, visual effects, and surprisingly high resolution screens. Like, they didn't have to animate in 60 FPS, but they did, and I commend the animation team for that. I wonder how good the refresh rate is on those screens and how good a game of COD would be on them. I wouldn't say it was that scary, but I respect the attempts, and a few times I did think, shit, if I was a kid, I'd have reacted to that. Honestly, Alton Towers may not have many, but they have a pretty good dark ride game. I'd love them to try and go beyond next time and have a bigger dark ride. I know this dark ride was a retheme of a ride called Duel, which was, I think, a slow on-rails light gun shooter, so this redesign had to work within the constraints of the ride layout and such, but I do think this ride is worth a go, but only with a short wait. But to be fair, this ride lasts about 5 minutes, and dark rides can eat up crowds pretty well, so I doubt it will be too bad, even on a busy day. Sorry I can't say much, but unless these mofos allow filming on rides, allow press to film it, I can't review it properly. You could say I should have ridden it more and tried to remember more of the ride, and to that I say, shit is about to get real as we enter the endgame and into the Forbidden Valley. As you can tell, a good amount of the filming budget for this park went here, as before we even enter, we see the words Forbidden Valley on a sign written in what looks like red tentacles. Hold the hentai jokes for now. There's a pretty crappy looking arcade, but we'll just choose to ignore that. There's a helicopter, those red tentacles wrapped around rocky structures around this land, as well as around food stands and shops, which is pretty nifty. From here you can either walk left towards Nemesis Subterra or walk forward into the Nemesis Containment Zone, where, new for 2024, we have Nemesis Reborn. There's also a pirate ship ride called The Blade, just randomly to the side. You know, one of those rides where you go back and forth and get a bit higher each time until you're either 45 or 90 degrees to the ground. I didn't ride that, and also it's closing when I record this bit, so let's go and check out Nemesis Subterra. If it wasn't for a queue, I would not be shocked if people ignored this ride, as the entrance is rather tiny and the sign is oddly small. I genuinely had no idea what was to come, and the appeal is somewhat lost after the first time. So in case you want no spoilers, I thought it was fine. I feel like when it gets going it ends, but give it a shot at least once. Now, spoilers begin. Let's go. The queue is shit, although my headcanon is that this is purposely bland, so you're wondering what is actually inside the ride. At the same time, there are a few screens that have some backstory, so maybe not. The land we are in is, or was, owned by Phalanx, some company I don't know, and they discovered deep underground an egg which we are deemed safe enough to see, and TLDR, we're going to go deep underground to have a gander at this egg. The only thing I remember from this queue is the god-awful green screen used in portions of the pre-show video. Like, it is painfully bad. I think it's because the live actor and the backgrounds don't contrast well together, and it's very obvious it is chroma keyed. After giving our items away for safekeeping, we are told to enter and wait inside. After a rather long wait, we are put into a room to emulate going deep underground. From there, we are in a rather wide room with rows of seats situated around an egg. We are told to sit down, remain in our seats, and, to the shock of nobody, stuff goes wrong. To my utter surprise though, the ride actually has a drop. The lights cut out in the room as we drop underground in a pretty cool looking underground section. The ride also has water jets and air cannons to give you the sensation that something is scurrying behind you and underneath you. When we return back up, we see the egg has hatched, and for our own safety, we are told to get the heck out. From there, we made our way through some hallways. And near the end, there was actually a few scare actors, who I am assuming were in contact with the monster that escaped, as they seemed infected. Like I said in the non-spoiler part, the ride feels like it gets going, and then it kind of ends. The scare actors were a nice, minor surprise, but Nemesis Terra is missing that one extra thing to make this ride good. Maybe we are in the ride longer after the egg breaks. Maybe a reason can be given for why the escaped beast is tinkering with our seats and we drop down again. I'm not too sure, but honestly, I'm not sure I recommend trying this ride unless you're completing the park, as to be honest, this ride is mainly here to give backstory to the land and also to the roller coaster we are about to ride. I don't hate it, far from it, but I really wanted to love it. Instead, I just think it's there.
Something terrible was unearthed. The Nemesis creature, an alien predator from another dimension.
Here we finally are, the big boy of Alton Towers, the 2024 remake for all my Resident Evil fans out there. This is Nemesis Reborn, a fresh coat of paint on the original Nemesis roller coaster which opened in the 1990s. Once again, we have a very strangely small sign, which we are going to ignore for now, and walk down a small flight of stairs to inspect the big ass fucking eye. This big ass digital eye would react to the ride, and would roar and expand when the ride passes through it, which was cool. As well as that, there are a few mechanical claws that slowly move to give the eye a little bit of life. On my day, there were two walk-around actors waving around signs, one of which read, "Nemesis has feelings too," and they would try and calm him down. Truthfully, I don't get what the point of these people are. Are they supposed to make us feel bad for riding the ride? Are we abusing a vulnerable creature by riding this ride? I feel kind of dirty now. Let's just ride the ride and get over this guilt. And replace it with annoyance. This queue is way too fucking long. You walk around nearly the entire perimeter of the ride. If the wait time says 5 minutes, it won't be. It will be at least 10, as you have to walk around the bloody entire length of the Great Wall of China before you can even begin to queue. I guess this is a sign of the height limit this theme park has rearing its ugly head, or eyeball in this case. There was theming dotted about the line, including a video screen at one point, but honestly I didn't take any of it in, and unless you're stuck waiting, I doubt you ever will. Although there was a telescope at the peak of the queue, which allows you to have a closer look at the ride. The actual ride layout doesn't have much theming, but there's enough. A helicopter which is obviously damaged atop a hill, a bus to the side with the letters SW3 written on it, made in reference to the fact that the original ride was deemed secret weapon free by the Alton Towers team. Secret weapon being the code name they give any of their big deal rides. The ride dispatch area is inside the Nemesis monster itself, but it's a bit underwhelming, so let's review the actual ride. The ride is smooth as hell, man, and my lord, it is fun. It's funny, you climb a lift hill, and then as you are moving around the first corner, the ride feels slow, but then almost as if the brakes are lifted, it picks up, and my goodness, this ride is smooth, man. Sections like hard banking to the right feel sublime, the loop-de-loop felt effortless, and the extra effects of hearing Nemesis roar, as well as steam being blown when we are going into a tunnel or passing over Nemesis himself. This ride is incredible. I rode it in the front, middle and back, and each offered a different experience. The back was the most thrilling due to not knowing what was coming, the front felt like you were flying right into a battle, leading the charge, and the middle, though not as fun, was still plenty thrilling. I am not playing. Nemesis Reborn is amazing. I personally prefer the Wicker Man, but I fully understand why people say this is the best roller coaster at the park. As my god, Nemesis Reborn is simply so dang fun. Passing a pretty damn cool gift shop, which I have to respect the fact that you're not forced through it, but instead get curious to walk into when you see a scale model of the Nemesis ride building, which is worth checking out. We see the last 2 points of interest today: Galactica and the Roller Coaster Restaurant. Quickly, the Roller Coaster Restaurant is for sure an experience more than a place for high quality dining. Then again, do I look like a person who cares about that? The main appeal here is the history of Alton Towers theming on the walls around you, and the fact that your food is delivered to you via a roller coaster, and then you plate it yourself. You have to reserve to go in the days I was there, and it does stay open longer than the park does if you'd rather enjoy the park and then eat. But we are walking past on this occasion to ride a ride that sits on its lonesome, feeling rather out of place, and as we are about to say, feeling its age. Galactica outside the ride has a cool first impression. The theme that coats the area with sound gave off the vibe of like a Call of Duty menu. The speakers dotted around did not do the song justice. I highly recommend giving this song a chance online. The icon of this ride is the ring emitting mist around onto the riders, which must cause rust problems, but it is kinda cool. So Galactica has a bit of an interesting history to it. It opened up as Air in 2002, and it stayed that way until 2015. It was rethemed as Galactica in 2016, which had VR headsets on the ride, which for some reason was all the rage at the time, which as a tech guy is quite funny to learn that they were Samsung Gear VRs. I have one of those, and they are pretty naff, and the best phone you can have on the version I have is a Samsung Galaxy S8, which if you're not techie is a fine enough phone, but not top of the line, which you would expect at a theme park. This ride also made history as the first flying coaster by Bolliger and Mabillard, or B&M. Truthfully, I'm still learning about ride manufacturers, but I do know that when that name is said, some credibility and quality comes with that name. Needless to say, I was interested as I entered the ride. Passing the space-themed entrance, we have a long as hell walk with fuck all going on. It's so long that I have 4 separate clips of me filming the queue. The indoor portion was even more bland somehow, and parts of it looked in disrepair. I haven't ridden the ride yet, and I can already tell that this ride is aging, and not many care about that fact. Once again, before I ride the ride, and to be a bit more positive, I must say the music was lovely. Can't overstate how much I like this ride soundtrack. This is my first time riding a flying coaster, and I must say, as a man, the initial moving into position part is cool, but it does hurt your schlong a fair bit, at least in my case. Don't know what this is about me, but them's the facts. The thrill of flying sure is interesting. However, I overall found the ride fine? Like, it was smooth, very smooth, and the feeling of flying once again is interesting, but perhaps that is all the thrill? I don't know, man. I wasn't massive on this ride, and after 2 rides, I think I am fine. The ride starts well, going through that Galactica ring and then going upside down, but besides that, the ride layout felt rather bland, and I must ask, do I look at the ground or do I look up? A genuine question. Overall, Galactica is some people's favourite ride at the park, but for me, sadly I didn't get on as well as I wanted to with this one. So on this occasion, I guess I am in the minority here. With all the attractions I got to ride taken care of, let me rattle off a few things I could not fit in anywhere else. I found the Twitter support very useful. I had some questions regarding park hours and hotel early access, so shout out to the support staff. A guest at the Alton Towers Hotel can enter the park an hour early, which I thought was an awesome perk. So I rocked up at 8:50 for a 9 AM early entry. At 9:10 we were finally let in, and the entrance is near Galactica, which is at the top left of the park. I hightailed it over to the Wicker Man, and nothing. It wasn't open, so I queued up. Those people who mocked me for filming queued up right behind me, and we waited. We waited for the park to open at 10 AM, and then the ride opened. So early entry literally gives you early entry, and that's it. Nothing is open when you get in at 9. So you queue for an hour to be the first car of a ride that day, but considering you waited an hour already, which you could have done during the day, what is the fucking point? You could argue that this gives you extra time during the actual day, which is a fair point considering how short the Alton Towers operating hours are, but my god, I was annoyed as I walked off my first ride of my second day, that of which I was leaving at about 2 PM to drive back up to Scotland. Unless you want that 9 to 10 AM to have a nice walk around the park or gardens with nothing open, which can be kind of fun in its own right, stay in bed a bit longer, get some more breakfast grub in you, and just arrive at like 9:45. Yes, there will be a queue to enter the ride, but the queue really won't be that long. You'll be happier, your feet won't hurt like you have plantar fasciitis, and I would know, and that would be a better start to your day. Just give us 15 minutes of early entry like Tokyo Disney. At least then you can enter the park and actually enter most of the rides, get that extra hour of sleep, and queue an extra few minutes than you might have before, as personally, I found hotel early entry pointless. There is a few water filling spots. I'm sure if I went to an eatery I could have just asked for water, and they would say you should too, as my god the water feels so slow. I personally only accounted for 3, but apparently there's a few more in total. With the Alton Towers app, you can't look at wait times until you are in the park. This is a shame, as I like to look at wait times and at average times throughout the day before I arrive, so I can gauge what rides are more popular than others, which allows me to plan a bit. I noticed that the roller coasters, and I'm sure other rides did too, have sensory warnings. I don't think I've ever seen a sign dedicated to just sensory warnings. That's great in my opinion, and an awesome bit of accessibility that can help anybody. Heck, the sensory warning for Nemesis Terra helped me prepare for what was ahead of me. So, Tour 13 had a bag collection section, as did the Smiler. On a bank holiday it was operating, the day after it was closed. I guess this is a good way to tell early if it's going to be a busy day if the bag collection bits are open. Finally, before the hotel experience, I did try out their mini golf as it was a part of my hotel package, and it stays open an hour after park closing, which was nice, and possibly a good way to avoid all the crowds leaving if you are staying until the park closes. Is it the best mini golf I ever played? Nah, far from it. And I am not a massive mini golf in real life fan, as unless you're playing at a dead time, you are either always waiting for someone or someone is waiting for you, which I just find unpleasant. But this mini golf, or extraordinary golf as Alton Towers calls it, it was quite fun. There's 18 holes, and with the hotel I got to go on 9 of them. Though to be honest, I'm sure I could have just done all 18 if I wanted to. I doubt I'd get carried out by the mini golf police. Each of the holes were themed to a ride or something in the park, which added a nice bit of that good old brand synergy. Overall, I thought the holes were well laid out, and if I wasn't speedrunning it to try and get footage before closure, I am sure I would have had a better time than I did. Alton Towers really do love Nemesis though, as there was like a recreation of Nemesis you played inside of. That was cute. I'll do a proper overview at the end, but in case you're going to stop here as you don't want to hear about the hotels, Alton Towers is a great theme park, probably the best in the UK. Check it out. Right, Alton Towers has 5 hotels, all of which I investigated minus the one made for little kids, as I'm not that kind of guy. Alton Towers also has a water park, which I didn't get to go into for reasons I'll state shortly. And Alton Towers used to have a spa, which sadly closed, and I believe just hasn't been replaced. A mighty shame, as I would have actually made use of that, considering what you can do once the park closes. Quickly, there's 2 pretty damn unique hotel options, with the stargazing pods and the enchanted village. I can't comment much on the Enchanted Village, but I do know that they are basically fancier versions of the stargazing pods, with more room and stuff in your accommodation. The stargazing pods are nestled far away in a very quiet area far away from the park, and they are basically very small pods which look like it could sleep up to 4 people. However, if I thought you were brave for having 4 people in the Thorpe Shark cabins at Thorpe Park, my dog, you must truly be built different to sleep in these. Apart from a reception, a breakfast pickup point, which probably means it isn't a hot breakfast, and a child's playground, that's all there is to this. I guess it is aimed at families, but I mean, I love my little brothers, but I think I speak for all 3 of us when I say those pods look like hell. A couple? Hell yeah, that could be fine. Otherwise, unless it is stupidly cheap, I would argue skip. The CBeebies Hotel is aimed at families with little kids. Here's all I took of it, but from the outside shots I saw of it when touring the neighbouring Alton Towers Hotel, it actually looks pretty damn well themed. So to be honest, that may be a shout if you have younger kids with you. Next we have the Alton Towers Hotel, with a beautiful water fountain and overall vibe that gives me around the world in 80 days. Walking into the lobby, there's a nice photo opportunity, and then the top of a hot air balloon, attached to a slow-moving propeller, attached to a pirate ship, where performances aimed at kids often played. There was a gift shop, a small coffee shop, and a pretty dang pricey restaurant, as well as a nice outdoor section with a water fountain, which gives you a view of the CBeebies Hotel. Overall, I thought the theming was quite nice, but like I'm about to say with the Splash Landings Hotel, there isn't really much to do once the park closes. I will say, the restaurant, though pricey, had a wide menu, which I personally appreciated as someone who doesn't get much out of eating lower quality theme park food for restaurant quality prices. I did grab my mug from the gift shop in this hotel, but if I was willing to spend a bit more that day, I would have grabbed one of these ride resins. These look really cool. Near the gift shop there was a comically large chair to sit on for a photo opportunity, and a pretty naff looking arcade. Finally, where I stayed because it was the cheapest, Splash Landings Hotel. And to be honest, you would not have guessed it was the cheapest hotel you could book. There was a cute and intentionally rugged looking water fountain, / water thing, outside the hotel, a cool looking logo, and as soon as you walk in, you're hit with the warmth from the water park inside of it. Yeah, not only does Alton Towers have a water park, but it is inside the hotel. Very cool. However, the water park has shorter hours than the theme park, being open from 10 AM to 4 PM the day I was there. You can't film inside for very fair reasons when it is open, but I'll show you the water park once we get there. As you walk in from my memory, your reception was to your right, and you could walk left to see a little area where small shows take place, as well as a bar that served drinks and pizza. Needless to say, I didn't buy anything from there. I believe there was a gift shop here too on this floor, but if it's not, it's on another. Going downstairs we have Flambeau's Jambo, where I went for breakfast, which you had to pre-book. It was your typical buffet you'd expect in the UK, meats, sugary cereal, drinks and treats, water, and a hot drink section, and that's about it. Another arcade can be found here too. This one's a bit bigger with more stuff to do. Many of them were ticket-based games where you could win those tacky prizes we seemed to love as kids. What was wrong with us? Going downstairs once more, we find the entrance to the water park and a walkway to get to and from the Alton Towers Hotel. Along this walkway, you get a chance to view the park, while also feeling the lovely warmth that this water park has for some reason. Like it was proper humid in there. From here, you also get a chance to see all the possible ways you can view the water park from the hotel. This water park truly feels one with the hotel, which is really cool. It is a shame too the hours of the water park are so poor, as it looked like a good time, including what looked like a water coaster. I would have loved to try that. Overall, the hotel was fine. However, let's review the room. Now, a first for me, I filmed a room tour, so we're going to cut to an ultra tired me, I was in the process of buying this house at the time, as I give you the highlights of the room tour. Little mirror here. Hello, I am tired. Some basic, but whatever, nice decorations. This bothers me to no end. So if you play Like a Dragon or the Yakuza series, you'll recognise that font. And I will say no more. These were on the bed. I haven't loaded them yet, but I think they're for little kids. Either that or someone my brain age. This was blazing hot when I came in. Instantly turned it off because this hotel was already warm. So I'd recommend just turning that off straight away. And what I did was open the window. I don't know if you can see that. There's stone carvings there, which I find really cute actually. I really like that touch. Let's see what the bed is like. Yeah, I'd be happy on here, yeah. I'd be happy on here, I'd say. Yeah, not bad. The room is quite warm, I will say. The room is quite warm. Sure is that. So, turn on the fan that's up there when you're out and have that window nice and wide. Although I would probably close it when you go out because let me show you something actually. That reminds me, let me show you something. So, if someone did want to be a deviant, poke you outside. This is the view outside the window. Someone could easily just like do what I'm doing. Stick their body out the window, get out, and then just go into someone else's room. So, just a warning there. Overall, I thought the rooms weren't that bad. I mentioned some of the issues I had, like the room being boiling upon my entrance, the fact that with the window open and the view of the lovely rock carvings, someone could literally just walk into your room if they wanted, and the Yakuza / Like a Dragon font that still haunts me now. But the rooms themselves are good in my opinion. Fits a family easily, the beds were fine, I made use of the bath and shower, and the kettle was clean. And the Wi-Fi, though not the fastest, worked perfectly fine. Happy days. However, I spent literal hours walking around all these hotels trying to find things to do once all the parks and other entertainment closed at around 6 PM. And the answer, truly, there was nothing. So I can see the appeal of a themed room like the Sonic one I discussed earlier back in the Spinball Whizzer section, or any of the other themed rooms they still do. And there's a fair few surprisingly, as the basic rooms themselves aren't the best to do things in. So maybe plan ahead and bring some work, a games console, a book, or just sit in the bath and rest the fuck up, samurai, as once everything shuts down for the day, outside of an arcade, or maybe the thrill of getting your food delivered if you are like me and don't want fast food, this hotel can be quite boring. Very warm in here. One perk I didn't want to mention until now is that if you stay at a hotel, you get parking with your stay, which leads me on to driving there. I was in the process of buying this house at the time, so I drove down from near Edinburgh, Scotland, to the southwest of England. The drive was perfectly fine, although I did discover the Midlands of England has the worst motorway out of any I've ever driven, but once you get about an hour away from Alton Towers, at least the route I was driving, you'll be in the middle of nowhere. I pulled over at one point to get footage of my genuine reaction to driving the back roads, and although it was just me going, Jesus, over and over again, there is this one corner I wanted to highlight. If you get to this corner, either drive straight or do your best to plan ahead and go past it any other way you can.
To do it. And got videos from some kids that really love streaming. Thank you, Connor. We're raising money, your money directly allowed me to go to this. I was like, God damn it. If they're trying to secure me to raise money for them, I'm like, damn it. Yeah. But no, it's really sweet. Send a message.
And with all that said, my final conclusion. Alton Towers is 100% worth your time. I believe it is at present the best UK theme park, as it offers a unique experience. By being surrounded by actual British history with the Grade 2 listed buildings, as well as the beautiful nature and natural beauty you can't really get at any other theme park. You can try and recreate it at places such as Animal Kingdom, which I will review the rest of the Disney Orlando theme parks one day, but for now, Alton Towers is for sure worth your time. I don't think it has many rides that will enter your top 10 outside of a couple, but I really do think it is worth your time, and the creativity displayed here with the roller coasters and the height limitations the park has to deal with really must be commended. Although, this theme park still isn't like out of this world incredible, and I'd still say it's the UK's best. I really hope this Universal Great Britain does work out, as I bet that would shake up the industry and hopefully people step up their game. Like maybe Alton Towers on a slow day will be open longer than 6 hours. A boy can dream.